I wonder, Titania, I wonder if I have done right, and I wonder why I wonder. Will is a willing vessel for the great stories. Through him they will live for an age of man, and his words will echo down through time. It is what he wanted, but he did not understand the price. Mortals never do. They only see the prize, their heart's desire, their dream. But the price of getting what you want is getting what once you wanted. And had I told him, had he understood, what then? It would have made no difference. Have I done right, Titania? Have I done right? Hello, and welcome back to the Legendarium Green Team. We will be covering Sandman, the third volume, Dream Country, by Neil Gaiman. We will be doing our standard issue-by-issue format, summing up with final thoughts at the end. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we start with issue number 17?
Oh yeah, I have. I just want to give out a warning to everyone because there are a lot of triggering things here in those chapters. Like a lot of triggering things from SA to animal cruelty to depression, suicide. Yeah, warning. It goes dark.
Yeah, I get the sense that Sandman's not really like a light and fluffy, happy read.
Would I love it so much if it were? No,
No,
absolutely not. Yeah,
no, this is definitely an Ash kind of story.
absolutely. Very, if I was ever an emo, then this would have been this would have been my soul put onto the page.
Are you sure you weren't an emo? Just kidding.
I was an odd kid, not
Yeah.
emo. Sadly,
Okay.
I have nothing against
Okay.
emos. It's a great aesthetic.
What I did want to say was I appreciated that this volume was a nice break from the previous two. Like the previous two were really cool because it was a lot of world building, and I do think you needed the context and the building up of the relationship and understanding of Morpheus to really appreciate this volume. And there's some callbacks, especially with the Midsummer Night's Dream one, callbacks to the previous volume. So, but because this volume was just like 4 short stories basically, and they weren't necessarily like a continuation of each other, it was nice. Like you could just okay, I'll read a story, take a little break, and then yeah, come back and then start a new story. And it felt really nice to have that beginning and completion in such a short amount of time, especially since I'm reading lots of long things right now.
Very long things. Yes, this is one of several short story collections that exist in the Sandman universe, and they're all great. Morpheus is excellent when he is not the main character. I like him as the main character too, but it's really fun watching when he's going to pop up in all these stories, because of course he's going to pop up in all of them because this is Sandman.
Right.
Mr. Anderson, do you have any initial thoughts before we get started?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, we mentioned how these aren't necessarily like light and fluffy kind of stories, but they don't feel they're easy to read. Despite that, I think that takes a lot of talent to do to kind of keep it flowing and not to get bogged down in a lot of the very depressing details that he put in these stories. I still feel like they flow quite nicely.
Agreed. Yeah, this was like the easiest volume for me to read out of the 3 so far. And probably because I already have more context. I'm like, okay, cool. And because they're the self-contained short story.
And it's fewer issues than the other ones so far.
Yeah, although, I mean, the thickness of the volume isn't that much shorter.
Yeah, comic book thickness.
Oh, you know why? Because this version, so I'm reading the 30th anniversary edition. It's because at the end, he has a script
Oh.
of one of the short stories of, I think it's Calliope's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
short story, that one. And it's got like annotations to provide commentary on that script. So that's why it's almost the same size.
these are all very fairy tale, right? Like you could imagine your grandmother reading these to you. Well, some of them. To you.
Well,
Maybe
I could
the
totally
cat
see
one.
version.
The cat one.
Yeah.
Not the rape muse one.
Yeah.
Sadly, but that's the style that I think he's going for, like dark fairy tale, and
Yeah.
it definitely is. It's an easy read. It feels very natural. It feels very human, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I do really like the title that they came up with for this volume, Dream Country. I do think it sums it up really well, where it's like, okay, this is what happens with Dream,
Yes.
and yeah, you're exploring it.
I actually think this is an excellent example of really, really good prose that is very easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
There's in the fantasy community, there's a lot of discourse around prose, and there's this conception that good prose always has to be purple or flowery. I always bang on this drum, but this is an excellent example of prose that is excellent and easy to read and makes the story easy to read.
Yeah,
Right? It conveys the
the
emotions
simple
so much better.
prose, but not simplistic prose.
Yeah. Like we had a conversation with AP about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Not all of it on air.
For the most part, I agree. Only chapter 19, but that was
The Shakespeare one, yeah,
yes,
makes sense.
yes.
So that wasn't Gaiman's prose.
Oh yeah, that's true because okay, when we get there, I do want to talk about that because like a lot of it was lifted from the play.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Neil Gaiman shamelessly steals from other authors, and he's very open about it, and he has described his writing before sometimes as fan fiction.
Mm, that makes sense. One last thing before we get started into the first story. I pointed this out when we were in our Discord chat. The foreword in my copy, or the introduction of my copy, one of the two, is by a guy named Steve Erickson. It is not Steven Erickson of Malazan fame. I got so excited, and then I was like, why would they spell his name wrong? And then I had to look it up. I was like, oh, never mind. It's not the same guy.
Yeah, Steve Erickson, big literary guy, as far as I can tell. I haven't read any of his books. I'm just disappointed that it's not Steven Erickson. Like,
I wonder if he gets that a lot. People are like so excited. Wait, you're not who I thought you were.
I hope so. I hope that many people are getting excited about Steven Erickson. Or Steve Erickson.
Anyway.
I'm sure Steve Erickson is that guy.
Yes. Okay, now I'm ready.
Calliope, issue number 17. A struggling author buys one of the ancient Greek muses to improve his storytelling. He finds success once more, then goes temporarily insane until he frees her at Morpheus's bidding. And yes, this is super dark. Super dark. This author, it's a great iteration on what it takes to make great art story. The sort of the tortured artist, the artist that is putting themselves through a lot to get these great stories. Like people like to bring up, for example, Van Gogh cutting off his ear, and all of his mental health issues. Maybe that let him make this great art. This is kind of an externalized thing. This author is doing it to someone that is not himself, and he's willing to do horrible things. He's willing to rape her serially for decades, it seems, to get these great stories. And I don't know if Gaiman really comes out with a conclusion like on whether suffering is needed to create great art here, but it's what you would expect a horror writer to do with this idea. Take it to its horrifying extreme. And yeah, eventually at the end, this author gets what he wanted. He gets all the ideas in the world, basically, and they're ripping him apart and he needs to get them out.
I love that twist.
Right?
I really, really like that.
The recurring theme of all of these stories is the cost of dreams. And this is a great introduction to that, I think.
One thing I think is interesting is that he was a successful author before this. Like, he wrote a very well-received book, and it was just the follow-up.
Yeah, he didn't want to be a one-hit wonder.
Mm-hmm. So that's when you're talking about like, does art require sacrifice? I mean, he did it once. It was just trying to recreate that he couldn't seem to capture on his own.
That's true.
I think that's also like because that was his first book, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he probably didn't have the same kind of pressure. And maybe he was just really writing from his heart. I mean, this is like me conjecturing. He was like really passionate about writing for writing's sake, but then it became so successful, and now he has that pressure of I need to either repeat the success or do even better. And that is what seems like to be the blocker for him to be able
Mm-hmm.
to write. Because I guess part of it is he's just afraid. He's afraid that it won't be as good and he can't even like finish whatever he starts because of that fear.
One interesting thing I heard recently someone say was that you have your whole life to write your first novel, and then 2 years to write the next one.
That, yeah. That, yeah, we see that all the time where it's like there's this 40-something-year-old author, 50-something-year-old
Mm-hmm.
author that's put out their first book now. Like, a recent example is Philip Chase. He's been working on his book for years and years and years and years. And I think another great example is Patrick Rothfuss, who spent a long, 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 long time polishing his first book to get it to the standard he wanted it to. And when he started publishing his next books, he realized, oh, he actually needs to put a lot more time into these than he thought. And oh boy, we're still waiting. This story calls to mind the beginning of the Iliad to me, which the famous beginning, the Homer, the alleged author of the Iliad, sings to asks the muses to give him a story. He says, "Sing, O goddess, the anger of the Achilles, son of Peleus, that brought countless ills upon the Achaeans. Many a brave soul did it send hurrying down to Hades, and many a hero did it yield to prey and vultures. For so were the counsels of Jove fulfilled from the day on when the son of Atreus, king of men and great Achilles, fell out with one another." And the idea that it has the idea that these stories are coming from somebody else, and to something external from the human who's actually telling them. And a fun thing is that ancient philosophers would often frame their arguments as revelations from the goddess of wisdom
Oh
or
yeah.
the goddess of love. They would relate to the stories as they were spirited away to the land of the gods, where the god would tell them something, and then they would come back, and then they would be bringing the revelations to the masses.
Is that like so that there's more credibility for what they were saying? Like, oh, this is not me saying it. I'm just like a messenger. I'm a vessel for the wisdom of this god.
That's one theory, and I think it's probably the correct one. Another fun one, actually, is the idea that humans didn't have an internal monologue for a long time. And so when
Oh.
they started gaining an internal monologue, they thought it was the voices of the gods that were talking to
Huh.
Yeah, that's a weird thought. To not have an internal dialogue.
I think they just got sick of people asking them where they get their ideas from.
You really
Yeah,
want to know? Fine.
Yes. I mean, they didn't have a good understanding of logical fallacies back then, so, it's just argument for authority. Default to that.
Speaking of like the darkness of the story, like the beginning, the first image or the first panel that we see, I mean, it is already dark. And then you see, it's such a disgusting thing. It's like basically a giant hairball, but it's like human hair.
The Bezoar.
And oh, just to think that like that was in somebody's stomach.
This is another quote about the muses from one of the translations of the Iliad. "Sing in me, muse, and through me tell the story."
Mm.
Yeah, but go on with what you're saying.
Oh no, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, it was just like that is such a strong image because like if you're just looking at the pictures, right? You don't really know what that is, and then you read about it and you're like horrified. What a strong start to the story. And then there's even more horrifying things to come.
He does have that interesting line when he first gets her, where it's like, well, she's not even human, so it's okay then.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rationalizations, the dehumanization, and she's not human, right? She's an ancient Greek goddess, and there, of course, is a lot of rape in Greek mythology, mostly by Zeus. I think this is one of Zeus's daughters. I don't remember the story, but we also get a return of the Hecate, the 3-in-1 goddess, and they'll keep showing up. By the way, they through them she learns what happened to Morpheus, and they kind of goad her to call upon Morpheus, who apparently had a relationship with her in the past. And at the end of this issue, if you caught it, and if you didn't, then I'll tell you now, Orpheus.
Oh.
The author mentions Orpheus, who is the son of Calliope and Morpheus. And something happened there.
I catch that he had a son with her, but I didn't catch that it was Orpheus.
Mm-hmm. And that was a tragedy too.
Yep.
Which, by the way, if you haven't seen Hadestown, the musical, check it out if you get a chance.
Oh, I've heard of that one. Okay. Yes. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, do we have anything more to say about Calliope?
I always love when Morpheus uses his powers. Just the interesting way he uses them. We're never going to see him in like a fist fight, I hope.
Yeah, he never smites anybody in the series. He never like throws bolts of lightning at people. No, it's always these really roundabout, soft ways of exercising his power, and it is excellent. It's so good because it's always so creative too.
Well, if you think about it, we haven't really seen anyone of the Endless. Was it Endless? Of the Endless use their power in such a way.
Yes, and none of them will. At least in this story, because Neil Gaiman, of course, has a particular writing style. He doesn't actually like writing violence that much. The way the Endless operate is, well, Dream. He's the Lord of Dreams. He's not the Lord of Kung Fu. Right? So it wouldn't make sense for him to be in combat with people. Of course, he would be working through these, forcing people's minds open to stories or giving them the curse of eternal awakening.
I think the most I really like that Death also. We haven't even seen what Death can really do, or at least not in this story per se so far. Like we have seen the one animation where we saw a bit of her powers, but we haven't really seen it in the story itself.
Yes, she mostly shows up as an older sister. Right? She's very much, whenever, like even in the later issue here, she's a comforting presence, and like she doesn't lord it over you. She's kind of just like, hey, what's up? Let's talk.
Yeah, it's given how dark and gritty the series is, for death to be something that's kind of the opposite. Like you understand that death means like the end of the life, right? But she's not portrayed as like the Grim Reaper or something to be scared about. And the scariness is depending upon the individual and whether or not they are ready to embrace her.
Whether or not they see her as a gift or not.
Right. Yes. The one last thing I'll say about Calliope is, so the Netflix Sandman show, there is an episode 11, and half of that episode is the adaptation of Calliope, I believe. And I had seen that adaptation before I read the original material, and I think the adaptation did a really good job in portraying the source material.
So you've seen all of the Netflix series then?
Yeah, I've seen all of season 1.
Did you okay, just quick, did you like it? Did you think it stands up to Sandman? Do you think it was a good adaptation?
I really liked it, and the changes that they made across the volumes, I actually really appreciated. I won't say too much, but I really enjoyed the adaptation. Mr. Anderson also watched it. What do you think?
I think it was good. I'd have to go back and relook at some of the changes they made. I remember some of them were a little... I wasn't totally on board for, but overall, I really enjoyed the show. And I especially enjoyed the extra episode or whatever was 2 stories from this volume. And I think both were very well done.
I still haven't seen
Yeah,
them. The
second story that they adapted in that episode is the next one we're going to talk about, A Dream of a Thousand Cats.
Yes, one of the more memorable ones in the series, I think, just because.
Yeah. Kitties.
And I guess just another benchmark of Morpheus' character development we see in this, because he does help her, even though he's not going to get anything out of it himself. And that's not, from what we're told, that's not what Morpheus of old was like, right? We see, like we see with Nada, he used to be much more ruthless, and it seems that his time imprisoned, and also now that the ruby is broken, things are beginning to change for him. He's not acting like he did, and Calliope notices this, and she's kind of confused and pleasantly surprised, and she offers basically, is like, hey, you want to rekindle a relationship a bit, and he's like, no.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
That's a bad idea, Calliope. Have a good one. I wish you the best, but no, it's not good. Which he's changing.
Is he gonna be alone forever?
How could any woman keep such an emo boy satisfied? You know, he would always be dreaming of another.
Oh god, that reminds me of the saying, I can change him.
Yeah. Yeah, you better believe that a lot of the young girls that were reading Sandman initially were just, I can change Dream.
Oh, no.
I can fix him. On to A Dream of a Thousand Cats. Issue number 18. A kitten hears the tale of another cat who exhorts it to dream of a world where cats rule over humans. And there's still an emotional beat to this story, but it feels so whimsical and fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what if when your cat is dreaming, it's really dreaming about eating you and...
Yeah.
I mean, I've always suspected.
Yeah, all the jokes of, like, your cats, when they're just, like, sitting there and staring, they're plotting your murder.
Yeah. CGP Cray, in one of his videos, was saying that a cat is a tiny tiger that lives in your house. And
Yeah.
it's just the case, right? Cats do feel affection for their owners, and they do get quite distressed when they die. But at the same time, cats they're still just tigers.
Yeah, what can one say? It was 10 out of 10.
Yeah, like, I actually don't have that much to say about this story, other than it was just, yes, there's that emotional punch with, the little kittens, being drowned, and that was like, ugh, you're like, you want to punch the owner. But I don't know, there's not a ton that I can really say about it, other than it was a bit of a delight to read, except for that part. And the ending, again, it was just like unexpected. Because, like, first time reading or experiencing the story, you're just as curious as the cats. Like, what is this other cat going to tell us? Like, what is the importance of this? And then you find out, and either you are bought in and you enjoy that twist, or you're like, oh no, this is too ridiculous. And that would mirror, like, the reactions of the cats who were listening. So, yeah, some of the cats were just like, nah, this is too weird.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's too ridiculous. And then the little kitten's like, no, I believe this, and I'm gonna dream it.
And that's how the world changes, right? People who have the audacity to realize, to ignore all the impossibilities of what's in their way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cat is just kind of singing Imagine to them, right?
I didn't think it that way, but sure.
I really liked the section where she's walking towards Morpheus, and she goes through the trials of the Dreamland. And, oh man, maybe I'll just read this out because I think it's really good. I walked through the wood of ghosts, where the dead and the lost whispered continuously. promising me worlds if I would only stop and play with them. I closed my ears to their entreaties. At one point, I thought I heard my children calling me, but I straightened my tail and I walked forward. I walked through the cold places, hard and frozen, where every step was pain, every movement was torment. I walked on. I walked through the wetness that numbed my paws, drenched my fur, tried to wash away my memories. I walked through the darkness, through the void, where everything was sucked from me, everything that makes me what I am. But even in the emptiness of pure nothing, no longer knowing why I was walking or what I was seeking, I walked onward. And I had thoughts about what these correspond to, like the stages of some natural thing for humans. I completely forget what they are. Listeners, please, if you know that these correspond to something, let me know. I've been racking my brains. Surely there's something that makes sense here that these correspond to specific things besides just a walk through the forest.
Well, okay, I can take a stab at what I think it means. It's like this cat was looking for a truth. And all along the way, like as she's looking for this truth, there were hardships, doubters, people trying to like dissuade her, like, oh, you're crazy, or like, how about instead of like trying to like being miserable and trying to look for this truth, like just accept it, um, accept like your reality and just stay in your comfort zone. But for her, she was like, no, I am on a mission and I'm going to fulfill my mission. I'm going to find this truth. That's my interpretation.
I believe that. And we can also extend that to the ending bits when she's lost all sense of who she is. When you... Oh, man. Here you get a bingo square. In philosophical inquiry, oftentimes you try and get to the root of things, and things stop making sense. Nothing is intuitive. You need to realize that there are hard limits to human knowledge. Very hard limits. And this is where the famous saying, I think, therefore I am, comes from. Because when Descartes said that, he was trying to rebuild his base of knowledge. Okay, so he can establish, okay, I can think, which means that I exist. And then he also did some weird things by asserting that he knew that God existed, so he can build up his own base of knowledge off of that. If you don't take that as an absolute truth that you know know for certain, as a self-evident fact, an axiom, then you're basically still stuck with I think, therefore I am, and then some mathematical things. And then that's all you get. So this is where dreams come in handy, right? Because you need to make a leap of faith. Even if you're a scientist and you believe in empiricism, you need to make a leap of faith somewhere so that you can rebuild a network of things that you know or believe in.
Yeah, it breaks my brain. So the adaptation of this story is animated, and it's the only animated part of the whole Sandman season 1. And I thought that was a really good choice because of the things that we talked about. Like, it is more whimsical, and also, like, it's probably cheaper to do the animation than try to, like, CGI all these cats.
Yeah, or just, like, wrangling 100 cats.
Yeah, or yeah, have real cats. What'd you say, Mr. Einstein?
Oh, it probably looks a lot better than 100 CGI cats. So.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, the humans wearing
or
cats.
puppets.
Oh, if they just gotten like the actors from Cats. Buttholes and all.
Oh my goodness. Have you seen the Cats musical, that movie?
I haven't. No, I've seen neither, and I have no desire to see either.
So okay, I'm a sucker. I saw it in theaters when it first came out, and that was before they like edited, like did another round of edits, and so you did literally just see people in basically cat suits, and like their paws weren't even paws, their paws were hands. It was bizarre. So bizarre.
The story of the making of that movie.
Yeah.
I hope more comes out from it, but that's...
No, we don't need that.
The portrayal of Morpheus in here, so he is now being presented in these stories as someone you can journey to, and he doesn't seem to refuse requests. There will be people that will try and dissuade you, but if you are determined to have a dream, then he will give it to you, and he will warn you that it will cost you a lot. And this is, I think this is Morpheus at his most interesting. He's very equitable. Anyone is allowed to dream. Anyone can dream. It's just, what will that dream cost them? And for this cat, it seems like it's kind of working out for her, because she gets to just wander around, and her kittens aren't going to get murdered anymore.
Mhm.
But later on, there are dreams that cost a lot more.
Yeah, I was wondering about like what is the cost to the cat here? Is it like maybe the cost isn't necessarily always what happens after, but she had already paid the cost because of her kittens and therefore was granted the dream?
I think that's part of it, and another part of it is now she does have to follow her dreams. That consists of her spending an entire life preaching to many cats that won't believe, that don't care.
That's true.
And her life might end up just being for nothing. If maybe this doesn't happen. Like we're humans are still ruling the world right now. So clearly, 1,000 cats have not dreamed the same dream. And false hope is one of the worst things that humans have, right? If you're constantly longing for something that you can't have, that can never happen, then it's very painful, and yet you can't stop doing it.
You brought up that you found it interesting that Morpheus let them all journey to him and make their dream come true. And that reminded me a little bit of Death, like that he learned it from Death, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, are we good for the next issue?
Actually, she had a pretty comfortable life before all this, and I think that was part of the cost, is she lost that to become a stray.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
But then again, I don't think she would have liked to remain by her owners after
I
they.
wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Not after they killed her kittens. But before that, it seemed like she was happy. She was content with her life. And another dream would be the stray that came to her and that she mated with.
The one like panel with her eyes. It's like all dark and then her eyes. I really like that image. I would actually like want a print of that.
The art in these is so good at times.
Yeah.
A Midsummer Night's Dream, issue number 19. Shakespeare's company puts on a performance for Titania, Oberon, and the last of the Fey creatures on Earth. All right, Starcast, take it away. Give us your thoughts.
I just did not understand that chapter. I was like, why is this chapter here? What am I reading? What is that? I'm just here. I'm just existing. I needed 3 days to read a chapter. I was like, just please end this misery.
So what's interesting is in the US, and I'm not sure about in Canada, but Shakespeare is typically required reading, required material that's taught in school. So I don't know if necessarily like most people would have read this particular play, A Midsummer Night's Dream, but you would have read at least something of Shakespeare. And I really enjoy A Midsummer Night's Dream. Like, I don't always enjoy Shakespeare, but this one, it's just fun. Like, it's definitely a comedy. It's very ridiculous, and it's just fun. And I feel like it is something that is definitely better, like, seen as a play than really read, like, as a book. And to see it in this way with basically you get all the highlights of the play in in this
That was the highlights.
yeah, you get like all the major plot points of the play in this issue, but then you get the commentary from the audience and some of the actors, and that's really fun.
Yeah, I agree. And the play ends with a hint of genuine menace when it's the puck. It's a spooky panel at the end too, which I really appreciate. I haven't. Yes, Shakespeare is definitely meant to be seen and seen live because there are really good film adaptations of Shakespeare, but it's a completely different experience when you're seeing it in person and the actors will react dynamically to the audience that they're performing to. If they're actors worth their salt, they will add little asides and reference the audience sometimes, and they'll be like it'll be playful,
Right.
it'll be really fun, and you can really see why Shakespeare's plays are some of the great tales.
But the part with the sun, that was the only part where was like, okay, I can reference it to something at least. Because I was like, oh, that reminds me of a German poem called Der Erlkönig. And it's about father with his son who rides through the dark night. And during that ride, his son sees various things like the elf king and the elf queen, and his father sees nothing. And in the end of the poem, the boy dies because of fright, because he was so scared. And it
Oh.
yeah, and it ends kind of like with the question, did he just die because he was scared or because he was whisked away by the fairy king and queen?
Yes, that's actually a really good parallel, I think. And in this story, it would definitely be the latter, right? Titania has this scene where with him, and later he says to his father, "She whispered such wonderful things to me," and then he kind of brushes him off. Not now, son. We're later.
That line is not exactly, but it's a part of the poem because it's like it said, my father. So don't you hear the fairy queen's lovely words? Something is in the poem directly.
Interesting. I totally believe that Neil Gaiman was drawing on that then. And Hamnet, Shakespeare's son, in this has a really heartbreaking line where he says that his father doesn't even see him anymore. He thinks that even if he died, he would just use it as fuel for another one of his plays.
Yeah.
And,
Doesn't he?
well, the play Hamlet exists, right?
Yeah.
And Hamlet is kind of like a dual creation. It's partially inspired by the play Amleth, which is what the recent film The Northman was based on.
Oh.
Yeah, Amleth. And partially because his son died, Hamnet. Yeah, if anybody knows the story of Hamlet, then I think it makes total
that I know.
sense. Yeah, it makes total sense, the context there. And this one is... So Shakespeare gets 3 appearances in Sandman, okay? We've seen 2 of them now, right? The first one was in the one issue with Hobgadling. The second one was this. The third one, just to give you guys an indication of how long to expect it, it's at the very end of the stories that we're going to be reading.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yes, this one is about... It's the source of the quote that I read at the start of the episode, and Morpheus is wondering... He's wondering at the cost of dreams. And right now, Shakespeare is just at the start of his fame. And he's writing these plays that are going to live on forever. The great fairy folk of yore, he's performed for them now. And this is at the height. He has what he wants now. And we'll see where it goes. But again, this is playing on the cost of dreams. What does it... And... It seems that this time, right now, it's his relationship with his son. He is not paying his son the attention that he needs, and his son dies. And so he's never going to have that time with him that he otherwise would have wanted, probably. So, tortured artist. It's like Calliope. It's like A Dream of a Thousand Cats. What is Shakespeare giving up so that he can tell these stories, that he can have these dreams that he otherwise might have had?
Yeah. I did think that it was pretty fun and clever to have the audience of the play to be the actual fairy, like, fae characters that the play also
Hmm.
was portraying. And I mean, in our human world, sounds weird to say that, but that the version of the play is for a royal court, and he took that, Gaiman took that and made it a fairy royal court. And also the commentary that they were like, "Hey,
Is
that's
that
me,
supposed to be
Peace,
me?
yeah, Peace Blossom or whatever."
That's not what I said.
I really like the yes. Oberon says to him, we thank you, Shaper, but this diversion, although pleasant, is not true. Things never happened thus. Oh, but it is true. Things need not have happened to be true. Tales and dreams are the shadow truths that will endure when the mere facts are dust and ashes and forgot. If you say so, Dream Lord, we are honored. I really like that.
I guess, yeah, I guess it's like, whatever the real version is, like, I guess it doesn't matter because that's not the version that anybody's gonna remember.
Mm-hmm.
This not true version will become the truth.
Yes. And that's the way you make events real to people, right? You tell them the human baseline stories that maybe miss some facts, or you condense things so that they make sense, or you change a bit so it's more thematically coherent, because events generally don't happen in nice clean ways. Real characters aren't always very consistent, which ironically rings false to audiences when they hear it, and reality is often stranger than fiction. Because
Right.
it's not required to be believable if things actually happened, right? But yes, these stories are what let us remember the past, and what stick in our minds. Because human brain is not a truth-seeking device; it is a story-seeking device.
I do not remember the real play, like the back of my hand. So, but I do remember, I think it was like at the end when Puck has his monologue where he talks about whether or not the events that we've just seen are real or not.
The lines are in the book. If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear, and this weak and idle theme no more yielding than a dream. Gentles, do not reprehend, if you pardon we will mend. And as I am an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck now to scape the serpent's tongue, we will make amends ere long. Else the Puck a liar call. So good night unto you all. Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. Yeah, Robin Goodfellow. He's saying that, oh, if you don't believe what we've said here, just call it a dream. Or if you want, and I, the Puck, would never lie. If you want, you can call me a liar. And if you call me a liar, give me your hands and I'll make things right. So he'll kill you, basically. He'll rip your throat out if you call him a liar and you don't believe his story.
I really like that twist where, you start off with the human portraying Puck, and then Puck's like, I can do a better job. And just does it.
Yes, it's so good. And yeah, at the end, it seems that the Puck is the last fey creature left on Earth. Mm-hmm. So who knows what he's doing now?
Well, that sounds like he's coming up sometime again.
Yeah, maybe.
I do think it's interesting that Morpheus brought like all the people of Fae to see this play as like their last foray into the real world. Just sort of like, this is how you will be remembered. This is your last impact on this world. And I think that kind of shows at the end, everyone seems a little like off-put by it. Like they're glad to have seen it, but particularly you were talking about Aburn and whatever, and just how he kind of reacts to it. They just seem a little, I don't know, a little like sad, but just off about it.
Yes, it's very, very bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to remember you. They're not going to remember you as you were.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a metaphorical truth to these stories that will exist, and it is more important than the mere facts, at least according to Morpheus.
Mm-hmm.
So,
inspired by true events.
Inspired by true events, I hope not. And I actually really like the arc of the lead actor in the play. He initially starts out as like, okay, Bill, if we're going to put on performance, we got to get paid. And eventually he goes to Oberon. Oberon's like, you're asking for money from me? So he's like, fine, you know what? I'm going to pay you.
Here you go.
And he does. He gives him a pouch of gold. And at the end, it turns out that pouch of gold is turned back into some flower pen.
Yeah.
And yet the actor doesn't feel cheated. He says, you know what? We performed for the king and queen of fairy. This was worth it. It's a very pure expression of what acting is supposed to be about. Right? It's not supposed to be about business, about making money. That's a necessary part of art. The fact that artists need to survive to make it. They need to be able to buy materials and such. But it's not about material success. It's about fulfilling this deep spiritual need that humans have.
I do think that, I mean, it seems like Star, you got some enjoyment and understanding out of it, but mostly because you also had like the German poem that gave you some context, even though you've never read the original play. I do think that it is beneficial to have read the play itself and then read this issue to just get more out of it. Or seen it. Even better if you can see the play. Or act it out yourself as you read it.
Oh, man.
Ooh, a Green Team production of A Midsummer's Night Dream.
As listeners have no doubt noticed, I have so much fun reading out what authors have written down. Playing a tree. Excellent.
You'll be playing a tree.
You'll play the best damn tree on an audio recording there ever was.
Audio drama presentation of A Midsummer Night's Dream by the Green Team of the Legendarium.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I guess that is, like, if you don't have a background of Shakespeare and of the fairy, that's kind of the bulk of what the story is. And I guess compared, like, a lot of the other ones, like, everyone kind of knows what a cat is, so you can kind of follow that one regardless. This one, like, you really need kind of that background to make sense of what's going on, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's very ridiculous.
Yeah. He does this quite often, I would say. He references things that if you know what he's referencing, then the reading experience is improved a lot. But since Gaiman draws from such a huge breadth of stories, then nobody's going to get them. And
yeah.
For this one, he definitely leans on the fact that English students in school will have probably encountered Shakespeare and probably know something about him. So the story is a bit more dependent on that. But he does do this quite a lot. And it just goes unnoticed because not everyone just studies mythologies, folklore for a living.
Or even the pop references. Like, I'm sure there's quite a few that just goes over my head.
Oh, yeah, because this was in like the 90s. Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Facade, issue number 20. A woman named Rainey gets advice from Death on how she might die.
I really like that one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, at the same time, I don't know how I feel about I don't know what it really wants to say about suicide and death. I haven't yet decided what it wants to say.
So the idea I get from Sandman is that Neil Gaiman doesn't think or doesn't want to think that death is something to be feared, that it is good that we die at some point, so long as, and in this issue specifically, Death basically tells Rainey, okay, you're gonna die at some point. I'm not gonna kill you right now, but so long as you do understand what's going on and you've made your peace with it, and then I can tell you, okay, this is how you might do it. So to me, this isn't suicide per se so much as euthanasia, because she is suffering from a chronic condition that has destroyed all of her relationships. She doesn't have anyone, and it doesn't seem like she would be able to get anyone, right? She's completely isolated, and people don't want to hang out with someone they view as a monster. And clearly she's trying to reach out to people throughout this issue, the agent from the company that she calls for her weekly allowance, basically. She tries desperately to form a relationship with him, and in the end it goes nowhere because he gets weirded out, I guess, and whatever. And then she gets contacted by an old coworker, and they meet up, and she feels that she's ruined it, and she goes home crying. It's unclear if that woman was actually horrified. It's just kind of left up to the reader's interpretation. So I don't know what it says about suicide in general. I think what it is trying to say is for that people in deep pain, suicide, not suicide, that death can be a mercy.
How does this relate to Dream?
I don't think it does.
But this is part of the collection of Dream Country.
I interpreted it more that it was not about Dream himself, but in general about dreams. Like dreams in multiple senses. Like her dream was to die. That was a dream. For the cat, her dream was to have revenge on humans or have a chance on revenge. That was how I interpreted it.
I would also add that this isn't just about Rainy's dream. It's about Ra's dream, about his quest against the dark. And we see in the dream that she has about when she got her powers that we learned that it never actually happened that way. But Ra was granting her great powers so that she might fight in his battle against this demon, basically. It's demonic darkness. And Death comes and says that, oh, that god is long dead. Ra isn't fighting anyone anymore. He's just dreaming that he does, basically. So it's not only about Rainy's dreams. She does have a section where she says that the worst dreams that she has are when she's normal, because then she has to wake up and be deformed again. So this section, I think, is a lot about false hope. The false hope that some dreams can bring, and the delusions that dreams can... The pain that delusional dreams can inflict upon the world and upon other people. That's how I read it.
So I just thought of a different interpretation, and I could be totally off base. I think this one out of all four is definitely the most ambiguous in terms of like kind of what is the point of the story, and it also happens to be my least favorite out of these four. And so looking at the part with Ra, her like explaining how she became this way, she says, I try to shout at him, tell him I don't want his gift. I want to be normal, that I've changed my mind. So it is interesting that last part, that I've changed my mind. Like, so at some point she did want this kind of thing, but like she wanted to be special, I guess, or different. But the manifestation of like her desire, her dream, I should say, isn't what she had envisioned it would be. And so she changed her mind, and then she has to live with the consequences. But then she says, I try and try, nothing comes out. I can make no sound. I failed. I didn't stop it happening. Even in my dreams, I can't win. I never asked for it. It's like, okay, so even in her dreams, like she couldn't stop it from happening. Like she didn't say, oh no, I don't want it anymore. So I think that I never asked for it. That one is still a little ambiguous, I think. It's like I never asked for the dream, that the manifestation of this dream, or I never asked to stop the dream. Not sure. She says, I just went where I was told to, did what I was asked. Was that so bad?
I understood it that she never really wanted it. She just thought she had to want it because of her superiors, or because of her boss or colleagues, and that they had talked her into it, but that she didn't really want it. And in that moment, she realized that I don't want that. I not really I changed my mind, but how should I say? I don't, but like that she gets it in that moment that she never really wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the just before she goes into the pyramid in her dream, her superior says, "Rainey, in that tomb's the doohickey that turned Rex Mason to a Superman. You're going in a top company officer, but you're gonna come out an American super one for Uncle Sam." She's living someone else's dream.
I think that's the point. That this isn't actually her dream. She thought it was because she was told like this is something you would want. And another interpretation of this is like if you think about like a parent and their child and what the parent's dream for the child is and pushes them to fulfill that dream, whether or not the child actually wants that dream and the consequences of it is a potential other interpretation.
One thing I thought is that this is almost like the cliffhanger. Like, because there isn't necessarily a story here, Neil Gaiman wanted to kind of push this into the next phase of the main story. And, so we had all these short stories about death, and now he wants to say, oh, but remember there are other endless. Remember there's more going on.
Oh, yeah, all these short stories about dream, and then,
yeah, that's what I
remember
meant.
there's also death.
Right.
Yeah.
So I haven't read the next issue, but I imagine it is going to focus on the endless more. And this is his way of kind of pulling it back to that.
That's a really good guess, Mr. Anderson. Just to set it up, the next issue starts out in Destiny's Garden.
Oh.
There you have it.
Oh. Okay.
Well, I also remember, was it in episode 2 or 1, where you said that in the next 3 issues, I think something like a fight or a war will happen? Or something with the Endless. Endless was
Something
it?
with the Endless, definitely.
I can't remember what exactly. God damn it.
It's okay.
Editor, you can
We're
insert
just-
whatever we said right here. So.
Okay, you will meet more of the Endless in the next issue.
Do we meet the secret one?
No. No, the secret one is still secret. The secret one is lost. Or gone.
Okay.
Or something along those lines. Do you have any ideas on what the last... Okay, so another one of the Endless is going to get revealed to you, besides Destiny. Destiny was actually a character that already existed in DC as far from what I remember for this. Would you like to make any guesses about the other 2 Endless now?
Oh, there was Destiny, Desire, Dream, Death, Despair.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one more?
There's 2 more.
Oh, 2 more.
Yes, one of them you will meet in the next issue. No guesses.
At one point, I had some ideas, but I forget what they are now.
Okay.
Destruction.
All I can think is the lovely, but that's something completely different.
Delight.
Destruction, Delight, DeLovely. I like these ideas. Okay.
Desperation.
Desperation?
I have to look. What did I write the last time?
I like these guesses. I like these guesses a lot.
I want to say Desperation might actually be one.
Okay.
Because it's like gritty enough.
Yeah. Oh man. Excellent.
All right. Bye. I'm going to go read the next one.
Yeah, no. I looked it up just now what I said. And I said that I thought that delirium was
Delirium.
the delirium was something like a destruction or decision. But the last one, I didn't
like
have
delusion.
any.
Delusion would be interesting because it's similar to Dream, but there is a nuance between the 2. So I feel like that would be more up Gaiman's alley to have Delusion be an Endless. Yep.
Yeah. If I wish Huron was on this episode because we could stare knowingly at each other as we laugh.
He would wiggle his eyebrows.
Yeah, this is excellent though. Excellent speculation. I love it. I love it all. So, do we have final wrap-up thoughts for this volume of Sandman before we wrap up the episode?
My parting thoughts are I feel like these stories are fun to read. However, I do think it's more fun to have discussion afterwards and to just like see what other people's interpretations are because like with it and even though the last story wasn't my favorite, so Facade isn't my favorite, um I do think that the conversation there having discussed it helped me see more meaning in the story than I initially did when I read it myself.
I will add on to that. I think that a marker of greatness that you have things to talk about afterwards. And not that I'm just necessarily calling this great. I think I really like these stories. I think they're also fun to talk about. They're not my favorite in Sandman, but I think that ideas and stories are best when you share them with others and you discuss them with others, and you do get new perspectives, you do get new framings, you get to defend your own framing. Things become a lot more involved and intimate to you when you're actually investing yourself in them, right? And rather than passively consuming. And I think this applies to more than just stories. It applies to like everything. The good old Socrates railed
Take a
against
shot.
Take a shot. He railed against the concept of writing because he felt that ideas would become dead if people just read them and didn't explore them through dialogue. So he thought that people would just regurgitate ideas that they had read that were written down by other people without truly understanding them. And I'm obviously a big fan of the written word, but he definitely had a point, right? Stories become richer when you share them with others and you talk about them. And like, you just look at Malazan, right? Like you wouldn't have made it through Malazan if it wasn't for the discussion groups, right?
No, I wouldn't. I would dropped it. And I think that's the other thing is like if I had tried to explain all my thoughts via text in like the Discord DMs, like it wouldn't have been as rich of a discussion.
Yes, absolutely. Things aren't as dynamic. Sometimes you feel stupid just like posting a wall of text and reading it back to yourself. It's like, what did I just say?
Yeah.
So yes, this is the entirety of my green tea participation is just a thinly veiled excuse to have these discussions about books.
This felt to me a lot like Gaiman short stories.
Yeah.
Like this was like a perfect examples of Gaiman writing short stories.
Yes. And his short stories, I admit, quite a few are a miss for me. So if you like read any of his short story collections, it's very likely going to be a mixed bag, but it's also kind of telling like the breadth that he can write because different people are going to enjoy the different stories from those collections. And I understand that it's not just like one tone or only a couple tones. He's pretty varied.
Starcast, final thoughts?
So, oh god, most of it was already said, but, well, I already talked about it multiple times on those episodes, but I'm always just very much surprised how many social topics are just in those comics and how progressive those books are, especially for the time, yeah. And it's just fascinating to see that nowadays and look back at it.
Neil Gaiman has for a long time been a progressive champion.
I'm also excited to see what else he's gonna talk about, what he's gonna use next.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by some of the areas that he goes to in some of the later stories. I don't know about the next volume particular, but yes.
Season of Mists.
Season of Mists.
Is next.
Get hyped. We'll cover it again in like a couple months or something. I really appreciate how short the reading experience for this one was, given how many
Me too.
things are on the plate. It was like an hour reading or something like that, and we've been discussing it for a long
Yeah, I read it
now.
in I read it in like 2 sittings.
Yeah.
Just nice little break and then yeah.
Nice little break, fun stories. All right, I think that's it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Thank you, co-hosts, for being with me. Panda, Mr. Anderson, Starcast. Thank you each for coming on. If you want to hear more, you want to participate in the discussion, you want to ask us questions, join the Legendary Discord. We will post a link in the show notes. Also follow us on Twitter at Green Team Pod. We will talk to you next time. Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.